God damn it. I'm on the air.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
And here we are, Splash Page, the Comic Book Club. We have an awesome show for you today. We're going to be kicking off our discussion with the massive storyline in Inferno, and we'll do a quick introduction of everybody. As always, the Velvet Joker himself. How's it going, Rich?
It's good. It's good. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing great.
Glad to hear it.
Drew?
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille.
Oh, that was bad. I love it. Chris, how you doing?
Fantastic. I'm burning in hell right now with Madelyne Pryor by my side.
Awesome. You brought a special guest with you. Would you like to introduce your guest?
Yes, this is Kelly from the Spiderweb network of amazing podcasts, and she covers a Spider-Girl Mayday Parker podcast, which is fantastic, as the daughter of Spider-Man. She's not the daughter of Spider-Man, but she cosplays as the daughter of Spider-Man, as well as several other people.
Yeah.
But you're mostly known for doing a fantastic job as Mayday Parker.
Thank you. Sometimes I don't know where she starts and I end, or however that works. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
And actually, the Spider-Girl is now actually Spider-Woman. Excuse me, right? Because her father was killed during Spider-Verse.
We don't talk about Spider-Verse.
Oh,
That's not a thing that we talk about. That can go in the trash, like all the rest of the majority of that.
Leo, don't get started. She's talking about the comic book, not that movie.
No. The movie is amazing. The movie is amazing and fantastic. Yeah. This is the 2014 slot team masterpiece. Spider-Verse.
Gotcha. Yeah. We'll get into it someday. Maybe not ever.
Wow. She just made that sound like it was some Clone Saga-ness right there. She was just like,
I
no.
mean,
Whoa.
we have her co-host coming up for the Clone Saga very soon.
Yeah. You might want to get the hate out now before he gets on, because he will defend it like to his life.
Anyway,
before we hand it over to Chris for the synopsis, I'm just going to give a little introduction. So along with X Factor so we kick off Inferno with Uncanny X-Men 239, 240, 241, along with X Factor number 36. You can also catch up with Web of Spider-Man 47 and Spectacular Spiderman 146. If you listen to the audio show, this is going to be on the Spectacular Spider-Man Sal Bucema era podcast. So Inferno is the first X-Book storyline to truly be a crossover. And the story actually continued from one title to another, from month to month. Inferno event lasted from October 1988 through August of 1989. And I'm going to channel my inner Sophia. Picture Sicily, 1988 and then 89. George Bush was president. The Niners won the Super Bowl. We had to say goodbye to Lucille Ball. And at the box office, Batman and Good Morning Vietnam reigned, along with a slew of sequels, ruled the box office. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2, and Back to the Future 2 were top movies. And the Boob Tube Saw, The Cosby Show, Roseanne, Cheers, Alf, Empty Nest, Growing Pains at top of the charts. Those were the days. So, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? So I convinced Leo that we needed to start Inferno to tie into the Spectacular show because the order number of issues of Spectacular Spider-Man was going to run into the mega crossover event Inferno, which was mostly an X-Men related thing, and I wanted the splash pages to cover it. So Inferno begins with a match struck as the enigmatic geneticist named Mr. Sinister and the demon lord N'astirh, I cannot say the name, set their respective plans in motion, both centered around one woman in particular, Madelyne Pryor, the wife of Scott Summers, X-Men Cyclops, and she is also the biological mother of Cable one day. Right now, he is just a baby, so not quite Cable just yet. The storyline will also involve the Sinister's agents, the Marauders, as they attack Madelyne's protectors, the X-Men, and this is just half of the first half of the Inferno coverage we're going to give it on splash pages. In about a half an hour, we will get into the Spectacular issues. But, Leo, what issues of Inferno did we read for this? Because I read like halfway through the trade paperback.
It helps if I'm not.
You can breathe now, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, so for this week's episode, we read Uncanny X-Men 239, 240, 241, along with X Factor number 36, and Web of Spider-Man number 47, and Spectacular Spider-Man 146.
Okay, so a little context prior to Inferno. Jean Grey had died during the Phoenix Saga, and Sinister scooped up some of her genetic material and cloned her into Madelyne Pryor. And Cyclops is so goddamn stupid, he couldn't figure out the woman he was falling in love with was a clone of the woman he's been pining over since he was a teenager. Because he has tunnel vision, no pun intended, because he can only see through red, so he sees every woman as a redhead, I guess. That must be the explanation. But Madelyne Pryor was kind of not Jean Grey, but looked exactly like Jean Grey. Like, she had her own personality. She was headstrong. She was fierce. She was a pilot. She was an own independent woman, but it was always this kind of like, wow, she looks a lot like Jean, but I can't figure out why. And Mr. Sinister was a character that was not created yet by the time Madelyne Pryor was introduced. So it was Chris Claremont's giant plan of like, we're going to introduce this in pieces. Now, Jean Grey was found to be alive and well by the Avengers at the bottom of the East River, where her body had been dumped by the Phoenix Force when she took over her body and said, I'm going to put you in a cocoon that's going to rejuvenate you and turn you smoking hot again. Right now, you look like a mummy, so we'll get back to you. She was handed over to the Fantastic Four, and it's revealed that she's Jean Grey, and Cyclops like, Jean, you're alive! Fuck my wife! And runs off to see her, and then he comes back to his house and finds the charred remains of both his baby and Madelyne Pryor. Later on, Madelyne Pryor decides to get involved with Havoc as part of the entire plotline to Inferno and starts seducing him. And that's where we are.
Okay.
Chris, before we start, I'd like to say that Chris, before we start, I'd like to say that when I die, if you're still alive, I'd like you to read the audiobook of my life, because I feel like you will make it so much more entertaining, because I just live for your summaries. Just want to tell you, beautiful. Just nerdy as heck, but beautiful.
Real quick, I wanted to find out, how did everyone learn about Inferno? What was their first experience, exposure to this massive, colossal event?
For me, through you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Rich?
Oh, I read these. This was the storylines. This is my senior year of high school. So, I mean, this was the storylines. I was reading X-Men and all this.
Drew?
I had always heard of Inferno because I've been reading X-Men for over a decade now. So I guess I always heard it in reference to magic, but I never got a chance to read it. So I'm going to go with Leo, and I'm going to say, it's all thanks to you, buddy.
Kelly?
I picked this up in a quarter bin. God only knows how old I was. I would assume it was 94, 95, so it was like 4. And I actually think my first X-Men comic, beyond the Rogue miniseries that had come out in 93, was probably X-Men 241 with Madelyne Pryor on that cover. I have it. Like, I own it. I don't know why, but I assume it was somewhere around there. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Awesome.
It's fun. Yeah. No, I mean, I was a child of the X-Men cartoon shows, so picking up the comics as a kid was great.
The my exposure to it was that issue of Amazing Spider-Man where the lizard is just prominently on the cover, drawn by Todd McFarlane, and he's like peeling back Spider-Man's mask, about to chew into him. And that was the first drawing of Todd McFarlane did of the lizard, which was just truly terrifying. And that tied into Inferno because it was, the lizard and Spider-Man dealing with the monsters of everything coming to life. And that issue just terrified the hell out of me. And then years later, I tracked down, thankfully this trade paperback was sitting at a bookstore that was part of a train station in DC, and I bought it because it was the entire Inferno saga, and I had never read it. I'd only read the Spider-Man issues here and there, and then years later, when I finally came into any kind of money as an adult, getting a job, I tracked down all the Spider-Man tie-in issues. Those Hobgoblin issues, which we'll get to in the next couple episodes, including the ones Kelly and I will discuss, were very expensive and hard to find sometimes.
They're very important to the Hobgoblin story. So I'm just going to call him Hobby because Hobgoblin gets jumbled.
Right. The artist on these books is one of the co-founders of DC Comics, and he was one of the prominent artists that left Marvel back in 1991 to go form Image with Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson, who also worked on Spider-Man. Mark Silvestri, I mean, his entire art style through Inferno is amazing. Uncanny, if you will.
You had to go there. You had to make that joke. I'm so mad that I was just about to do that. I hate you. God. Burn.
What does everyone think of Madelyne Pryor's costume in this storyline? Because I was first exposed to it in a What If storyline, and I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. I knew who Jean Grey was, but there's a What If Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires during Inferno, and Madelyne Pryor is in this ridiculous costume, and I was 13 years old and being like, holy crap, what am I reading? Am I allowed to read this? Will I have this comic book taken away from me?
We've talked about before the physics of the comic book outfit on the female body, how somehow physics doesn't work, so when they punch someone, they don't fall out of their costume.
It's double stick tape, and there is a duct tape trick to this. I'm a cosplayer. I know these things. I wouldn't suggest duct tape on your skin. However, you can you can make it work for some double stick tape that doesn't come off. Just saying. Also, I like slightly, if I wasn't body conscious like a normal human being, I would say that is a definite Dragon Con costume if I ever saw one.
Oh God!
There is a cosplayer who came on my show who did a giant Vampirella movie review commentary with me, who does this costume perfectly.
Oh, nice.
She works for Top 10 Nerd.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
I've known one or two people who have done it, and it's so funny. But I agree with both of you. It's so crazy when you see that, because it's just a reminder that as far as comics are come, it's still very much rooted in a kind of, they're written for men, male fantasy kind of thing. So you see this, and I was just like, yeah, don't tell me that's not possible. Like that's essentially like a skimpy bikini, weird top looking god. Like I feel like you'd see that in like a club for vampires.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And that person would fit in beautifully in that surrounding. In the normal world, someone like that's a stripper. That's some Vegasness right there.
That it would be like a very expensive stripper.
Oh yeah, no, high quality. I mean, to die for.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't go into a lot of deep diving into the issues of New Mutants because I didn't think it had like a big enough impact to everything that we're going to cover in like just 2 weeks. But the demon known as Sim, how Kelly, do you know how he is tied into Inferno with N'astirh, whatever the demon's name is?
Yeah, just call him the demon, man.
Yeah.
I just called him N'astirh.
I mean, I'm like sitting here. I'm like, we were reading this, but I'm not entirely sure how he's tied to Inferno. I haven't read all of Inferno yet, so I've only read what we're going over today. And so right now, it's just I know that there are demons at play, and New York is. I'm not quite sure if this is New York 1988 or New York 2020. So there's that. But yeah,
actually, I do remember now. The big fat purple demon that keeps popping up sometimes is actually the demon that was running Limbo when Magic was trapped there as a young girl growing up into her teenage form, because she goes in there as like a 7 or 8 year old girl and she comes out at like 16 years old.
Right. You're talking about Sim, of course.
Yeah, Sim, the fat, chubby, cigar chopping demon that we see in the promos, holding the chain of one of the X-Men, standing next to Madelyne Pryor and Mr. Sinister.
So can I just say, I still find it amusing, no matter what, when I'm reading Claremont, that he always feels like everything, he treats every issue like it's the first one you're reading. So all the characters always go through such like explanation dialogue in their things. They always go like, oh, if this person with this power was doing this thing, oh, they're also experiencing that. I was like, what an excellent way to catch it up with top-notch action. Like, he's just so good with that. But it's just such a thing that he does that I feel like other people don't really do as much. But I noticed it especially in the X-Men, Uncanny X-Men issues. And I'm just like, man, like it's dated, but it's still great. I don't know if you guys feel that way. That's just that thought.
Signature style.
But I also was like, I couldn't believe that Scott and Alex technically are Eskimo bros with Madelyne Pryor, right? That's what I was insinuating? They both have slept with her, so literally Eskimo bros, right?
Yes, but like also even like just the issue that y'all are pulling up with Dazzler. Like Dazzler just takes a person home and then later on, totally gets mad. Alex hanging out with Madelyne. So I think we should just realize that, there's more action in the X-Men crew than Beverly Hills 90210 at the time.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And this pause right here on the scene, Leo. This is really important about why Madelyne's able to get her mitts into Alex and turn him into her little bitch boy, because it literally, Alex has this full head to toe black costume with the Havoc symbol on his chest. By the end of Inferno, which we'll get to in the next week's episode, it's like torn to shreds and looks like a BDSM fetish gear like hers. But this scene right here, Havoc had to kill somebody that was infected by the Brood, and he is not doing very well with it, having to murder somebody with the use of his powers, something that he uses. He wears that containment suit because it helps contain his powers, just like Cyclops wears the visor to help keep his powers in. And this is something Madelyne uses to her advantage to get into basically get into bed with Alex because he is so distraught over what he had to do recently, killing this brood human.
And also, Kelly, I 100% agree with you on the drama. Like, I've never seen two X-Men fight over somebody wearing their dress while I believe it was roller skating. That was that was new to me. Roller skating in the outback over a guy, and then Longshot just comes in, and Dazzler's like, "Oh, I thought we were a thing." And he was like, we didn't really put a title on it, so I just kind of was feeling I was going to get a little lucky here. So, I'm from another world, so your rules don't really apply to my Mojo-verse status. Let's I'm sorry. And I'm just like, damn.
Well, there's the whole point of like the really sexy 80s nightie that Psylocke is wearing. And she just like takes off her stuff and just like starts running around the nightie. And you're like, wait, what? Like, that's normal? All right, cool. And then like in that scene with Rogue, she comes crashing into a wall where Psylocke is literally being painted like one of the French girls for Colossus. And that's just normal. That's just a normal day with the X-Men.
And let's add one more to it, that Havoc is still pining for his ex Polaris, who is now possessed by Malice.
Yep.
Yeah.
The amount of bondage that gets covered in Inferno is absolutely unbelievable. When you have Madelyne Pryor chained up by Mr. Sinister in this very, she's in the costume and she is literally chained with her arms and legs and waist bound up by chains by Sinister, whose costume is also extremely ridiculous. And I couldn't even imagine how. Let's just say Madelyne Pryor is not a character you're going to see in Disney's upcoming The Mutants TV series that they're working on.
As you know,
oh boy,
we don't know. They could throw it on Hulu and just call it a day.
True story. You never know.
Now, is Madelyne Pryor currently alive on the island of Krakoa?
She has showed up in the Hellions series, where of course she reunites with Alex, and she loves how damaged he is. Not really sure where that went. I'm pretty sure she escaped capture, as the X-Men do, because they can never hold a bad guy. But yeah, so she's popped up before. So yeah, she's alive. She's out there. She's being the Goblin Queen, or as they say.
The other thing is, over in the X Factor book, the husband-wife team that currently works on X Factor really made X Factor what it was.
The Simonsons. Mm-hmm.
The Simonsons, excuse me. Yes. Walter and Louise Simonson, who I met a couple times at That's Entertainment in Worcester and at Boston Comic Con. They were on X Factor for quite from the very beginning to up until just a little bit past this point, up till Cyclops, I think, has to send Chris to the future to be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, and I would like to point out, and we have it perfectly right there. The thing I particularly enjoyed in Inferno was the little references, the pop culture references. Like, you cannot tell me, look at that image. That's not Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, that kid is wearing a striped shirt and he's carrying a stuffed tiger. That's obviously a reference to
Alvin and Jobs. It's Alvin and Jobs.
Yeah,
I keep telling you.
Get out of here with this, okay? Get out of here with
ridiculous theories.
Yeah, they changed it.
I'm just telling you.
They changed it just enough.
Mephisto is showing up in. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Oh no. I was just gonna say, when I used to do sign work, the guy who owned Calvin and Hobbes was, from what I understand, the company was notorious for going after people for selling his artwork as stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. This is also, by the way, I love Marvel and DC have this problem. They can't seem to assign any other job to girlfriend characters of the superheroes besides just being a reporter. This is Trish. She was dating the Beast at this time, and she was a reporter. It's what's her name? Wally's one-time wife before the New 52, and Linda. Yeah.
Linda Park.
Linda Park, and there's like 4 other female characters I can't think of off the top of my head who are all reporters that date the superhero. And it's like, guys, there are other great professions out there. You don't need to make them all Lois Lane. I understand Lois Lane is the character to model the girlfriend after, but there are other amazing professions out there you can assign to these female girlfriend side characters.
I'm also sorry.
Go ahead, Kelly.
No, go. You go.
Okay.
Kelly.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I was like, I'm wondering though, because of the time that we're in or they were in too, if they were just basing things off their friends who were also journalism majors or creative writing majors that went into journalism, because that was very common. And maybe that's why that profession seems to be common in comics.
Mayhaps.
Maybe. I was just thinking it was just like Lois Lane works. Let's just do that. But make her Asian. But make her black. But make her a redhead. But make her, you know what I mean? And just like change it up.
No, it needs to be changed up. It is completely overplayed and was already made iconic with Lois Lane. But I'm slightly wondering if maybe they're, everyone says write what you know. So
right, and Barry's wife currently on the Flash TV series, Iris, is a reporter, and Mary Jane in the Spider-Man video games is now doing Peter's job at the Bugle because Peter, they wrote Peter as a scientist in the video games.
Yeah.
A scientist who keeps working for mad scientists like Otto Octavius, and I can't wait to find out who he's going to work for the next one. He's going to be Miles Warren, the creepy college professor.
Chris, you got to slow down with your rants, man. I swear to God, you start losing steam near the end.
There is one thing I will give Mr. Sinister over Miles Warren. He didn't clone Madelyne Pryor to just want to bang her like Miles Warren cloned Gwen Stacy just to be like, I just cloned you because I couldn't have the real you. So I cloned you so I could bang you.
That was I'm glad they glossed over that when they did him in the animated series. But another reference that I wanted to bring up, which is a personal favorite of mine that Leo, before we started, brought up, is that essentially in here you have this group of investigators and whatnot who are essentially the Ghostbusters. They're essentially doing research on it, and they get kicked out because the Egon-ish person of the group is being a snob. And the maitre d' is like, excuse me, if you can't be a professional, again, get the fuck out. And they're like, okay, fine. We're going to take our gear that obviously is a proton pack into the murder elevator, which if you're a Ghostbuster fan, you know that we have a thing about elevators. We just, love turning on our equipment during that. And again, this just taught me that I need to just beware elevators when my city is dealing with a demonic possession, because apparently you're just going to get eaten or stuck in a mural where you're pulled apart by demons. So lesson learned,
Check the walls before the doors close. Check the walls before the doors close.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a scene early in the X-Men issue where some people go into the elevator and get freaking murdered with the blood seeping out from the elevator. Okay. Kelly and I are going to cover that scene really quick coming up in Spectacular, because I think one of the reporters at the Daily Bugle mentions people disappearing in a elevator, right, Kelly?
Yeah, I think it's Joy, or it's Ben. It's Ben or Joy. It's when they're at a cafe.
Yeah, definitely.
And they see Glory with the Wolfman.
All of the images in this book. Now, Inferno came out in what year? 1988, right? Yes.
88 to 89.
Okay.
Yeah,
so at least 2 years prior to this, the Real Ghostbusters cartoon series came out, and a lot of the anamorphic, turn everything, your desk, your chair, your wall, your car, your toaster, the thing that the guy looks through the viewer at the top of the Empire State Building and it sucks his eyeballs out. All that stuff reminds me of the Real Ghostbusters, because they would have entire episodes where ghosts would just take over every inanimate object they could get their spirit into.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
True
also
story.
Came out, sorry, go ahead.
We need like a dorkening, like in Lord of the Flies when they have like, I've got the conch. Can we have like a nerd conch or something like something we all have is like, no, I've got the shield. It's my turn to talk now.
Wolverine has the best fight with the mailbox chewing on the man, and the mailbox is like pretty flippant to Wolverine. Like, I'm government property. You're not going to do anything to me. And Wolverine just the claws is like, want to bet, and then just cuts the freaking mailbox open to free the guy.
So just to back up real quick, so you're talking about the family that got eaten by the elevator. Not only that, I mean, to go into this without knowing anything, to see how dark it was in the beginning, you have the father that's thinking about, offing his own family because he's annoyed with them. I mean, what the hell?
Dad there.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Can you imagine if Claremont had written the thing that all of the epicenter of all the Inferno evil and demonic stuff had been the World Trade Center and not the Empire State Building?
Oof, man.
Yeah. Think about there's a crossover with Spider-Man and X-Force, Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld did, where the Juggernaut takes down one of the two towers of the World Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pulls it right on top of Spider-Man, Cable, and X-Force.
Damn that Juggy.
So I will say something slightly controversial. I have to say that as much as I enjoyed reading this, I feel like there were some issues where I was a little bored. Like like for me when because I read some of the intro stuff, and as with all due respect to Walt and Luis, like I found it a little boring because I wasn't reading X Factor. So, I mean, again, it was still good. It's not, some other stuff in the more recent times. But I just found myself a little bored. And then, like, when Madelyne Pryor is revealed to be a clone, spoiler alert, and if anyone gets mad, it's been out since 1988, so suck it. With that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is familiar. I get that. So, did anyone else feel like some parts of it weren't on the same, like, kind of running on the same level? I don't know. Where did that just...
No, I had in my notes, it felt like the 3 issues of Uncanny felt like As the World Turns 80s style. So like this isn't even like Dynasty or something that would be primetime. This is 2 p.m. on a Monday right after like Wheel of Fortune or something. Like it, because there's just different parts where it's like, here's this really cool stuff going on that I really want to get into. Like, why is New York City literally eating itself and its people? And then here's all of their melodramatic drama, and it's like, well, the only time that it starts to really turn up to me is when Madelyne finally meets Sinister and has their Darth Vader moment, because that's when you go, oh, okay, so now everything before kind of starts to make sense, because it's basically these kind of almost felt a little bit like filler issues as a whole.
What issue of Uncanny X-Men did you say Madelyne first made her appearance? It was before like 150, right?
I mean,
he just died.
Yeah.
Died. I'm using the bunny fingers.
Yes, died.
Drew, with the X Factor one, I really enjoyed the interaction between Beast and Iceman. Like just sort of being buddies and having a good time while they were defending stuff. That kind of took me back to like, okay, so it wasn't always the drama. There was still like fun and camaraderie being had. Right.
And also, don't forget at this time, the X-Men that we know the team to be, Wolverine, Rogue, Colossus, Havoc, Psylocke, Longshot, Dazzler, and Storm, were by the general population of the world to be dead. They had been supposedly killed off in the Fall of the Mutant storyline. And the X-Factor team was posing as like bad guys to round up mutants for the government, but actually turning them into like a place for mutants to live and not be persecuted and stuff like that. So X-Factor was posing themselves as being like this, we're the bad guys publicly, but secretly we're still the X-Men doing what X-Men have always done, protecting mutants. And the X-Factor team of the original X-Men, Scott, Cyclops, Jean, Bobby, Iceman, Angel, now called Archangel because of what happened with Apocalypse, and Beast, not furry. He's furry on the cover of my trade paperback, but he's not furry in the book sometimes. Have not interacted with Wolverine and the other X-Men in a long, long time.
And another moment
Xavier,
to bring up,
by the way, if anyone's wondering where Xavier is, he's in space with Lalandra and the Shi'ar Empire.
And it seemed like
and I'm not sure if it happened.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Drew. I apologize.
No. It's okay. You go. No worries.
Lost my train of thought. I should have passed you the conch.
Cool. Totally. Pass me the nerd conch.
Why don't we wrap up this? Sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
No. Oh God. See, we need a conch, man. I swear.
We need a buzzer. We need like a buzzer. Kelly, how do you handle this when you have like 20 cosplayers on an episode that you guys did recently? Because you guys had like 20 MJs and 20 like cats, right?
She offers the Warbler.
Yeah, well, we tried getting 20 black cats. I think it turned into like 4. But yeah, no, I think we were all, because we just wound up doing a round table.
Okay.
When it got so big, because sometimes popcorn just does not work.
Right. Definitely.
Sadly.
Definitely. Well, why don't we wrap up the first half of our 2-part coverage of Inferno before we get into Spectacular? Does anybody else have any other things to talk about with the few issues of Inferno that we covered?
I would like to bring up that I loved, and I don't know if it happened in this issue or because I read ahead, that they had this great moment where essentially it was the original team, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Beast, and Archangel, Angel, all back together in just one great shot, fighting against the forces of Inferno. I know it was fan service, but that was pretty cool. So that was pretty dope to me.
Oh yeah, so Beast has his image inducer. That's why he's not furry sometimes. I was like, why is he furry and sometimes he's not? It's because he's got that thing that like Kurt Wagner sometimes has, so people don't go, demon, and they're just like, oh, cute German guy.
So do we rate this now since we're not done? Like, I don't know. Like,
no, why don't we rate it until the whole thing is over?
Sweet.
Sounds good. Okay, well, we'll wrap up this portion here, and we'll head on over to the Spidey section. But as always, we do have a sponsor, Deadly Grounds Coffee, a local mom and pop shop here in Connecticut. Absolutely love their coffee, but they support the network. And here's a zombie talking about coffee.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds Coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds Coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
So head on over to getdeadly.com to find out more. They have a new s'mores flavor, and also just in time for Easter, it's a chocolate scream egg that tastes like a Cadbury bunny egg.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
I do need more coffee for my goblin juice.
There you go.
All right.
Cue the theme song.
Well, welcome everyone to the Spectacular Spider-Man podcast, Sal Bucema era, where we cover every single issue that Sal Bucema drew alongside writers JMD Mateus, Peter David, and Jerry Conway. And tonight we begin the coverage of Inferno with our special guest Kelly, the Spectacular Spider-Girl cosplayer and host of the Mayday Make Mine Mayday. What's the proper name?
Make Mine Mayday. You can use this hashtag on Instagram because I own it, but then I lost the password, so I don't use it on Instagram. But I'm also at Make Mine Mayday on Twitter, and you can find me on all the podcatchers at Make Mine Mayday, as well as the Crawl Space, and sometimes the Spidey Dude Experience. And yeah.
Okay, just back up a second. You can own a hashtag?
I don't own the hashtag. I just dominate it to the point that everyone associates the hashtag with me.
Okay, I just didn't know if you mentioned you didn't have the password anymore, so I was wondering if it was like a list that you took control of.
I originally created Make Mine Mayday as a Instagram account and then lost it, and now like you can do multiple and connect it to one. This was way before that, and yeah, so I just started using the hashtag.
I did that with Vlada. I've been using Vlada a lot for the book I produced, and I actually had somebody who's, I guess, some type of singer say, could you stop using that because that's like my rap name of some kind? And I was just like, okay, well, your lawyers can contact the United States United States Copyright Office by Uncle Sam, and you guys can hash it out because I've like registered this now, so. I'm going to continue using it. And they're like, and they didn't respond. So maybe I'll hear from their Matt Murdock one day.
Tell them, Chris.
Rich and Drew, are you sticking around to listen to this while Kelly and I cover it?
Sure. Why not?
Oh. I'll bail out. No worries.
No, I didn't say you didn't bail out. I was just saying we got.
Well, I was confused. I thought by your message the other day that we weren't doing Spectacular Spider-Man. Just you and she were doing it.
Yeah. Because we have so many people on like 2 issues, so that's why I was just like, I think Kelly and I got it, and the next week will be just us.
All right. Well, some of us are talking over each other, and I smell dinner cooking. So
okay.
There you go.
See you, Rich.
Have a great evening. Nice to see everyone. Nice to meet you, young lady.
Yep. Nice to meet you.
Deuces.
Bye. All right. So I think my issue comes before yours, Kelly. Right?
I believe so. Yes, because I have web.
Okay.
And yes.
All right. So
I have the one that's on Marvel Unlimited.
Gotcha. So this issue also introduces us to, I mean, he's been in the book before. He's been in the comic books prior to this. But in terms of this podcast, we are introduced to Harry Osborn, who was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko back in Amazing Spider-Man number 31 back in 1965. And he would eventually become the Green Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man number 136, the American Son in Amazing Spider-Man number 597, and something in current Spider books called Kindred that I still don't completely understand. I'm sure Kelly has covered.
He's a demon. I could totally get into that. That can be a later conversation because it does not apply here where he is still alive.
Yes. Harry Osborn is the son of the late, currently living in Europe, Norman Osborn. And after a spout of a drug problem, which occurred in the famous Comic Code Less comic book, Harry Osborn was in and out of having drug problems and all sorts of other mental health issues, mostly caused by his son of a bitch father, Norman Osborn. And he would eventually become the Green Goblin, give up being the Green Goblin, and become the Green Goblin again, one last time to defeat a psychologist fake Green Goblin named Bart. And Harry has been cured ever since and living a peaceful and happy life with his wife, Liz Allen, who is an old flame of Peter Parker's back in high school, and their little son, Normie. He is currently the head of Oscorp Industries and living the suburban lifestyle. As we meet, the issue begins, which is... I don't have the issue in front of me to go over the credits.
146.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry. Here we go, okay. Credits for this issue: Jerry Conway on script, Sal Buscema on art, Rick Parker on letters, Barb Sharon on colors, Jim Scallerup on editor, and Tom DeFalco, editor-in-chief. We begin the issue with Spider-Man enjoying his day after defeating Mysterio in Amazing Spider-Man number 311, where there was some wacky shenanigans going on there. And he is attacked by a fan monster, which he stops, and then he heads over to his apartment for a quick change before Christy and MJ come home. Robbie, still recovering from his injuries caused by Tombstone, continues his exercise and talking to his wife about his pending trial with Tombstone. The detective that has been working the Lobo brothers case with Ben Urich comes across another bloody message for the Kingpin, which he delivers to the Arranger, who is the right-hand man of the Kingpin right now. Speaking of the Lobo brothers, Eduardo Lobo runs into Gloria Grant outside the Daily Bugle and saves her life, and they decide to go to lunch together, which is going to become a big plot line in the Spider-Books coming up. Harry starts having nightmares about weird things involving goblins and other strangeness that is a recurring psychosis coming back from his time as the Green Goblin, maybe, while the Hobgoblin stalks his neighborhood. Peter's in the shower thinking about all the strange happenings happening in New York and realizing it may not be connected to Mysterio. When he gets out of the shower, Christy, Mary Jane's young cousin, is waiting there with a towel for Peter, and he feels pretty embarrassed by it, realizing they got to get Christy out of the apartment because it's going to make him very hard to be Spider-Man. Peter gets a call from Harry, goes to visit him at the factory, and the entire factory comes to life and attacks him. Peter switches to Spider-Man and helps Harry save Harry and everyone else at Oscorp, but Oscorp chemical plant is ruined, and we see the Hobgoblin in the distance. When Harry goes home to Liz, the ghost of his father, very much like Spider-Man 2, the movie, if you remember seeing those type of images at the very end, is taunting Harry that he must become the Green Goblin once again. The art in this issue, again, is Sal Buscema's best work with the fan monster attacking Peter and its snake-like ability. Just the way it, just flies around is unbelievable. Again, the Inferno storyline is one of the big reasons I wanted to do this podcast, because Sal's artwork is absolutely amazing. The way he stretches the lines out and how fluid Spider-Man is and the way he looks, it's unbelievable. Kelly, were you a huge fan of this entire era of Sal's artwork on Spidey?
Of course. I mean, it's Sal. All of my original pages that I own are actually all inked by Sal. Although, of course, most of them are from Ron Friends, because he's also amazing and my favorite. But they're kind of a package deal sometimes. So, and they're amazing. No, I agree. To me, the art is clean and just consistent. And to me, consistency is key with any comic book art. You never really want anybody to look like their faces are melting or something's crazy is going on, because...
Leo, you're too far. Go back a lot.
Oh.
That's what he meant.
Yeah, Leo was at the end of the issue for some reason.
Because
That's fine.
we were talking about that part of the issue.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna hang around Christy being creepy,
Thank you.
like here's the thing. Like I totally get it. She's supposed to basically be like Punky Brewster, and I guess in the 80s sitcom world that would be okay, but like it's not okay. She's literally staring at her cousin's husband, who is naked in the shower. And the fact that Peter's because we see this a little bit, his spider sense is off. So he doesn't even recognize that she's there.
Right.
And it's just, the thing is, someone really should have talked to Christy about boundaries.
Somebody has a conversation with Christy about a lot of things coming up soon, which I don't know if we get into it Spectacular or if it happens in Amazing.
Well, she also talks about stealing Peter away from MJ as well.
Yeah,
right.
She's those Tom Holland fangirl stalkers. So I live in Atlanta, and they film a lot of Marvel movies here. Believe me, I have had to have words with some women, normally are a lot older, at least double Christy's age, which makes it worse, is they'll literally find out that what hotel he's at and stalk the lobby for days on end to find him. And I'm like, the boy is what, 22, 23? And I know I shouldn't call him a boy, but no, he's a boy. So yeah, no, and that's the way I see her, is like, this is the same, it's the same energy, and it's just weird. It's gross. Just stop.
Right.
It's not cute.
Tom Holland holds the record as the only actor who was actually a teenager to be cast as Spider-Man, because he was 17 years old when he got cast in Civil War and filmed Civil War at 17. And then when it came out, he had turned 18.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be playing 15 in that movie. And then I guess he gets killed by Thanos at 16, or I guess.
He's still 16. I mean, that's the way the movie is set up. He's still 16. Blips don't count. That's how the MCU is doing their sliding age scale. It's just they're blipping people out of existence.
That's your new hashtag, Kelly. Blips don't count.
Blips don't count.
After Robbie's heart-to-heart with his wife, which she's pretty pissed about him because he's pretty much going to just turn over, in court on Tombstone. Harry starts seeing this face. Whose face is it? This is issue 146. The seeds are planted here for the upcoming, 40 issues later, Child Within storyline, where has Harry go completely nuts again, becoming the Green Goblin, and it will eventually lead to his not quite death, or possibly his real death. Who knows? With current issues of Amazing, the way they're talking about it in issue 200. But yeah, the seeds are planted in this issue for Harry's descent back into madness. It had been a really, really long time since we'd seen the Green Goblin in comics. It over a decade, I believe, right, Kelly?
I think so, but at the same time, I mean, technically, I don't think we've seen an Osborn as the Goblin longer than that.
Right? Bart, the battle with Bart, the psychologist, was the last time we saw Harry as the Green Goblin.
Yeah. Okay.
And then 40 issues later, that's when Ned Leeds or Roderick Kingsley or whoever became the Hobgoblin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a whole mess we'll unpack in Web of. We get a little glimpse of the Hobgoblin flying away as he is clearly spying on Harry just before Peter's shower incident, and then we get the Starlight Room. I'm assuming this is a club owned by the Kingpin with everyone murdered by the Lobo Brothers. Which, when we get to the Lobo Brothers issue, man, is that a horror movie comic book?
Sweet.
That is the Nightmare Gloria has coming up is straight out of a horror movie. It is just graphic, and it was like the book that made me just buy up every issue of Spectacular. We also get to see a lot of the Daily Bugle staff at this time period. You know, it's not just Jonah and Robbie that work at the Bugle. We also had Gloria, we had Kate Cushing, we had Ben Urich. I was so pissed on the Daredevil TV series when they killed off Ben the first season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell? That's a huge important character to Marvel Comics. I mean, it's like the Hulk movie not having Rick Jones. That pissed me off so much.
Well, it's the Netflix ones aren't canon anymore, so it's I don't know what they'll do.
Right. And Daredevil has reverted back to Marvel, which I'm assuming that means his entire cast of characters, which I guess includes Ben Urich because he was on the Daredevil show. So we could hopefully see maybe Ben popping up in the next Spider-Man movie covering the, whatever the plot line is going to be with Peter's identity revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we already know. We already know his Daredevil's character is going to be in the next Spider-Man.
That's a rumor. That's not
a rumor. I'm not feeding in any of that.
I'll tell you what can be confirmed and not confirmed. That's why there's too many rumors and not enough actual fact going on right now. Including the little staff shirts going around that are fake.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Chris, I have actually a question for you because this is something I've been wondering, and I feel like I just ask it. You've obviously reaped such praise about Sal and whatnot. Have you ever got a chance to meet him? Has he ever been at a convention and you were able to meet him at? I just, I don't know if he's ever been in one I've ever been at, but I figured.
No, I met his daughter a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was his daughter. And no, but I've gotten to know JMD Mateus, and I've asked him to reach out to Sal for me to put me in touch with him. He said he hasn't talked to Sal in a few years, but I would love to have Sal obviously on this podcast. I mean, he is up there in his age, so it's just a matter of whether or not he does them. I know he's been on the Spider shows.
He does them. He's more than happy to. The only thing I would suggest is if you really want to use StreamYard or any kind of video streaming service, to definitely have a tech day. I might be speaking slightly from experience.
Okay.
With our pal Sal. Just make sure that you have a kind of a tech day to go over everything, and then you should be golden.
I also wouldn't mind doing it because I had Tim Vigil, the artist, on my show, and he would only do it over the phone. If that's all some people want to be able to do it, that's totally fine. I can record it and then we'll replay it here on the podcast, either live or we'll just plug it into the stream. Because this episode will be online on like iTunes and all the whatever, we have plugged in so far, like next week. So you saw recently, we had the Boomerang episode just posted with Fighting in Chains, back to bondage.
Planting the seed.
He is a very, very nice and welcoming guy. Just the entire I'll put it this way, the entire Spider-Girl crew is some of the best people ever. that
Gotcha.
I've only had the chance to meet via online because pandemic, but they're great.
Of course.
And I'm sure he'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. I will hopefully I can have a chance to reach out to him. JM would definitely said he'd come back on when we finally get to his run. We did heavy coverage of his run. We talked about his school. We talked about his classes that he's teaching.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Deathstroke animated movie he just wrote for DC Comics, which was fantastic. And we really did the deep dive into The Child Within, which is like the darkest effing Spider-Man story I think ever. I mean, I know there's some really dark ones. Kraven's Hunt and Spider-Man Reign are dark, but Jesus Christ, the context of that story with Vermin is disgusting.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got a lot to unpack. Getting back to the issue at hand, because we still have to get to Web. The factory coming to life with it like snaking around everywhere. This would be like a dream come true playset to be able to make with Spider-Man like action figures and Harry would be an absolute fun. And it's just Spider-Man versus the factory coming to life is something that always struck me as the most oddest imaging of the entire book. And it clearly continues to set up Harry to really go off the deep end at some point, but he doesn't quite in what's going to happen next week. You think Harry's just going to revert right to becoming the Goblin, and maybe that's the seeds they were planting. I didn't read these books until much later on in my life, so Harry had already died. Maximum Carnage had just happened when I got around to finally reading these old issues. But I can see reading these issues in 1988, they are definitely planting the seeds that like, oh yeah, Harry's going to become the Goblin again, and it's going to be bad for Peter because, like his father, he's going to remember who Peter is, and it's going to be hell, and a nightmare. And they don't do that, and we'll get into it next week's issue with Amazing Spider-Man number 312. At the end of the issue, he sees the image of the Goblin in the mirror, and at this point Norman Osborn is dead. He had been killed by his own hand, like in the movie, but the Clone Saga would reveal that he got off the morgue slab and flew off to Europe. In fact, he even met up with Dr. Octopus at one point in a retcon issue. And other villains of Spider-Man's lore that were like, Norman Osborn, aren't you dead? And he's like, shh, let's have a drink. But this continues right into the next issue of Web of Spider-Man. Kelly, you have a plot synopsis, issue 47.
All right. Okay, so I did do a little bit of a background on it. So obviously it says the Hobgoblin returns. Web of Spider-Man 47 also says Inferno continues, The Awakening. It was $1 when it came out. February 1989 cover date, published sometime around December 1988. I couldn't find the actual day. The current average price for the comic is about $8. CGC graded is about $80. So since it does cost $95 for you to have your comic graded, I would suggest don't do that to yourself and find the $8 one. But story by...
It costs $95 to get it graded?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
CGC is overpriced, overrated, complete bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just saying.
I agree with that statement.
It's literally being sold at a loss right now. So just saying, don't, go look for the ones that are not in the plastic.
Right.
So story by Jerry Conway.
Signed by the artist.
Yeah, nice.
Hey.
All right, story by Jerry Conway, art by Alex Suvak and Keith Williams, cover by Alex Suvak. The story continues from Spectacular Spider-Man 146. The Hobgoblin and the Amazing Spider-Man wage a fierce battle at the Osborn chemical plant. And Inferno Chaoses is the actual official tagline from the original previews for it, which is weird because that doesn't make sense. But, anyway, we do have Tom DeFalco as editor-in-chief. So the story is called The Face in the Mirror. Strange things are happening in New York City. So while Hobby and Spider-Man fight, a monster made of rubble comes out to squeeze the life out of Spider-Man, quite literally. He breaks free, but Hobby got away. Peter is thinking about how strange it is that his spider sense didn't warn him about the fan vent or the dirt monster or Christie. And we kind of cut to the mall, which is what you do in the 80s, is go to the mall.
Yep.
Glory is walking with her new boy toy head over heels for Eduardo as they walk through the mall as one does in the 80s. And Ben Urich, Urich and Joy see them at the cafe on their cafe break, their Starbucks run. Urich is about to give Ed's name to Joy because his name is Eduardo Lobo.
Yes.
Right? And
Yep.
he is basically the Wolf Man.
Yeah.
Spoiler
He's a
alert.
straight up werewolf. Now,
He is a
here's
straight
the
up
thing. Are the Lobo brothers mutants or are they mystically supernatural
I think
werewolves?
they're mystically supernatural. They don't count as mutants here, but God knows what has happened throughout the years in comics.
We'll get there. We got that issue coming up.
Yeah, because my thing is
They're-
that sometimes X-Men takes everybody that's magical, and then sometimes they're like, no, and in fact, actually, half of you mutants are no longer mutants.
Thank you,
So-
Scarlet Witch.
Who knows? But yeah, so there's that fun fact that we are about to see a werewolf sometime in the future. But as Ben is about to tell Joy who Ed really is, the mall escalators just jump out as they please and bring the mall come crashing down. Joy saves Ben and realizes something is very, very wrong with New York City. I wonder why she thinks this, because this seems like a normal Tuesday. Peter makes it back for breakfast at Aunt May's boarding house, and they ask Aunt May to look over Christy after her parents surprised MJ with this European trip and to watch her cousin. I wonder why she thinks this.
Oh, we're getting an echo somehow.
Normal Tuesday. Yeah, I'm not. Peter makes it back for breakfast at Aunt
Sounds
May's
like somebody
boarding
has a
house,
video
and
playing.
they ask yeah, someone's got it playing. Sorry, who's playing it? Okay, sorry. Okay. All right.
The demons.
The demons.
Yes, the Inferno. It's taking over our
Demons.
computer.
It's the Inferno. Oh my goodness. So yeah.
It's
so
copying everything I've ever downloaded all over the internet. No.
no. All right. So all right. So we start to see the binging habits of Christy here, and kind of shaking up her place of living again probably doesn't help her eating disorder. But MJ runs off to the photo
Oh, you gave it away.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's
so everyone who's tuning in, Christy has an eating disorder. It goes nowhere, and we never ever hear or see Christy ever again. When it finally gets resolved.
You do see Christy again in Spider-Girl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. By the way, we never mentioned. We were in Spectacular. This probably would have made more sense to bring up, but you're still on the podcast. Who's one of the creators of Spider-Girl?
Well, Sal is an inker. He didn't actually create the characters, but he was involved in a lot of the plot making team because it's Tom DeFalco. He wasn't a part of the What If. No, because it was drawn by Ron Frenz and it was inked by I'm gonna butcher his name, Sekovich.
Really? Okay. Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna
No.
be on Radio Horror at some point in the future.
Nice.
Yeah. his
Yeah.
voice got back to me.
Nice. So yeah, Sal inks some key issues of Spider-Girl early on and kind of stuck with Ron, and then as the story continues, that's when Sal was inking almost everything.
Definitely.
But he didn't start off on it. He wasn't originally on 105.
And this, by the way, Hobgoblin is based off Ron Frenz's design of Hobgoblin.
Yes, it is. All right,
There you
let
go.
me get back to this.
Yes.
We got to get
Yeah.
back. We keep popcorning.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
We got 10 minutes, so go.
I'm gonna go as fast as I can. All right. So MJ runs off to a photo shoot, and Peter stops by Harry's. Liz is frantic and jumpy, like Liz always is, and tells Peter that Harry has been in the attic all night. So Pete goes up to talk as the hobgoblin looms in the distance. Harry is just a straight up maniac. He is completely manic as all get out and yells at Peter as baby Normie screams a terrorized scream out because the hobgoblin, who has been looming over in the distance watching Peter, is now throwing goblin bombs at the toddler to find Harry Osborn. Harry whacks Hobby with a rake and sets up a strange innuendo that Peter is just so happy about. Because to me it's low-hanging fruit, but let Spidey be Spidey.
Yeah.
And as I lose my place. All right, so Spider-Man tries to get the frazzled Harry and fam to run to safety, but Hobgoblin isn't giving up that easily as he needs Norman's goblin formula. Spidey mentions that this new hobby isn't Ned Leeds, and of course Hobgoblin then calls Ned Leeds a loser, and this Hobgoblin is a downright scuzzball. So Harry, we might know who it is. Harry decides to just give Hobgoblin some information about his father's safe, not exactly sure what's going on, and feels like he should have done more to protect his family. Peter heads to the Osborn offices. Meanwhile, at the Bugle, Ben goes to Jonah to tell him about the city going insane, and Jonah thinks it's doomsday. So again, is this New York City 1988 or New York City 2020? We don't know. Sliding timescale. So Harry goes back to the attic and starts looking for something. Determined by his self-directed anger and fear over not being able to protect his family like his father could, he finds the goblin costume. It's time for Harry to face the man in the mirror himself as the goblin.
Now, I wanted to point out that over in your show, his son, I think, has had, up until, the book ended and it's multiple miniseries and little, half stories that they put in the Spider-Man family, Normie Osborn, Harry's son, has the best arc out of Spider-Girl.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love him as a character. He has the best redemption arc out of all of the Osborns for sure, and he sticks to it.
Yeah.
But you can still see a lot of that influence from those in now the 616, because like when Normie is the Goblin Child in current comics, there's a little side story where his grandfather literally tells him to kidnap another child, so he does, and tells him to eat him because this is like when Norman's all consumed by Carnage. And Normie, even with the Carnage stuff on him, puts the child in a library and goes, climb out that window so I don't have to do something to you. You have 30 seconds. And that, that kind of sets up like how his psyche really is. He doesn't want to have to do it, but he feels that he's bound by fate because that is the Osborn way. So he tries to negate it as much as possible. And a lot of that came out of the mentality they gave Normie in MC2.
As a quick character profile, as we're introduced to the Hobgoblin for the first time during this run of Inferno, he first appeared as originally supposed to be Ned Leeds until Roger Stern left the book, and then it was supposed to be Broderick Kingsley, a character who was a fashion designer modeling Mary Jane Watson and other characters, and it was supposed to be built up to be a bigger character before the identity revealed was supposed to happen. But Roger Stern, the writer of the book at the time, left Amazing Spider-Man, and they made it Ned Leeds, the character from the movies that as well as Betty Brant's husband, and a longtime Spider-Man character who'd been around since the Ditko era. He was assassinated. Yep, he was assassinated, and Jason Philip McIndale, who was a character called Jack-o'-lantern 1, there's been like 5 of them now, became the current Hobgoblin. And McIndale has no superpowers. He's just a hitman. And Roderick Kingsley found Goblin formula, stuck it in himself, and became like super powerful. Harry destroyed the formula or whatever after that debacle happened and made sure no one could ever find it. So Macandale doesn't have any superpowers whatsoever, and that's why he keeps getting his ass handed to him. And that's what leads into what he does in our next episode. But where did Macandale first appear? Was it like in Machine Man as Jack-o'-lantern?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think you're close.
And McDaniel was murdered by Kingsley in Hobgoblin Lives when Stern came back after the Clone Saga to be like, okay, this is who the Hobgoblin really was. Retcon! Yeah. Okay. And Kingsley ran around in your Spider-Girl, correct?
Yes. Kingsley is the Hobgoblin in most of Spider-Girl, like the only Hobgoblin in Spider-Girl's run. He just kind of popping up.
One of the best things they did in Spider-Girl was with the good Green Goblin, Phil Urich, was a great story arc. What Dan Slott did to him was a bad story arc.
Well, I mean, that could be said about a lot of that.
And Dan Slott would resurrect Jason Philip McDaniel in some weird Clone Saga way, as well as a bunch of other dead characters like Gwen Stacy and Ben Reilly, but we won't get to that. Alex Subiak's artwork in this issue is fantastic. What do you think of it, Kelly, compared to Sal?
I mean, so Sal to me is one of your classic artists, and there's nothing else that's ever going to compare to it. But I think this is, again, it's clean, it's consistent, it's that classic style. But
oh no!
Oh no!
Kelly,
we lost her.
She's gone surfing the web.
If she has the link, she can get back in, right?
Oh, yeah, here she is. She's coming back in. I see her. There we go.
So sorry, guys. I know. No, it like I literally. It was like I'm sitting here talking, and it just goes, something went wrong, and I'm like,
what do you call it? The Hobgoblin threw a bat knife thing at your telephone internet line.
Or even better, you keep on mentioning the 80s. Somebody else picked up the phone in the house.
Guess so, yeah. Hey, I've already established. People forget that,
we
like,
constantly keep seeing weapons for everyone being made, like Iron Man's helmet, Captain America's shield, Thor's hammer. Where are our bat dagger things from Hobgoblin and Green Goblin? I want someone to make those.
I mean, you can ask any prop maker, or actually what I would suggest doing is probably, just so that way they're not super sharp, is to make the mold through a 3D print and then make a cast for aluminum and then do it that way. But it's not too hard, but you would need to know someone with a 3D printer and get yourself a molding kit. And then just get aluminum and melt the aluminum and pour it in, and there you go.
Kelly, can you name everyone at every one of the boarders at Aunt May's boarding house besides Nathan Lebunsky?
No.
We do make fun of the boarders in the very first episode of this podcast. The Mr. Pop Chick, the guy who pulled the gun on the guys on the subway and blew them away. In the issue after the Sinister storyline, May would kick him out of the house, and we would never see him ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly forgot that she had boarders.
Yeah, this actually. You want to hear something really funny? She started this whole boarding house plan in the first appearance of the Hobgoblin.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Nathan decided to start taking in boarders right around that Roger Stern two-parter where Hobgoblin's first introduced.
She's the mastermind behind all of the Hobgoblin stuff. That's how it gets funded.
The original two-part issues of the Hobgoblin, honestly, I think are one of my favorite mysteries of Spider-Man, because it's a guy that Spider-Man lets get away. He doesn't let him get away. He can't find him. And it's another one of those, oh no, it's the whole Uncle Ben, I let the guy get away and he killed Uncle Ben story, because that guy would find the secret lair of the Green Goblin and sell the information off to a mystery shadow person whose face we never see. And at the end of the issue, he alters the Green Goblin's costume to become the Hobgoblin. And we don't know who he is. And then in the next issue, he tries to take on Spider-Man and doesn't realize how powerful Spider-Man is. And it says at the end, oh my God, I just went through the ringer. I am exhausted. I'm a 40, 50-year-old man who just tried to take on a 20-year-old Spider-Man.
I mean, at this point, he's been 20 plus years old for 40 years?
Yeah, I think when I met with the current writer of Spider-Man, Nick Spencer, at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, I asked him, how old do you think Spider-Man is right now, the way you're writing him with his reuniting of Mary Jane and stuff? I'm like, I'm gonna say Spider-Man is 25 in my what I have going on, because he has to have been around for a decade for all these adventures to have taken place, and the Fantastic Four will always have been around at least a little bit longer than Spider-Man. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the idea, at least the way it seems to be for editing and other side stories, I mean, he's around 28, 29 years old, maybe 30. Like, you might even be able to say they're all in around 30 at this point. But that would be the tail end of it, just because like it is a very late millennial lifestyle, and he's in grad school, so I kind of feel like grad school at 25 is too young, slightly, especially after I'm taking those gap years.
What's something that really stands out for you in this issue? Before I get to a couple of mine.
Yeah. I always love a good Liz and Harry story, and this is kind of one of those classic ones where Liz is frantic and Harry is manic, and we don't touch on that enough. Like, that's literally their energies the entire time, so it's always kind of fun to always revisit that, because
I really like the Liz stuff that happened recently, where she was hanging out with she employed Spider-Man 2099 Miguel O'Hara for a little while, and she was the boss of Eddie Brock, Venom.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I like new Liz, but I like old Liz too. I do want to point out too, though, you said Flame of Peters. They never got together. They crushed on each other, but they never got together.
Right. She did admit in the graduation of high school issue that she had a long time crush on him. And he was like, "Why didn't you tell me all these years?" And that was the last appearance of Liz Allen until, issue like 170 something years later.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. There was no flame. There was no flame. They just
no, there was no flame.
Signals. Yeah.
And then she would. Oh my God! They tried to put her on the '90s cartoon series. And she barely has an appearance here or there. And then all of a sudden, when Harry becomes the Green Goblin and goes nuts and interrupts the wedding of Peter and Mary Jane, Liz is like, "I thought you and I could get together, Harry." And you're like, where is this coming from? I know who this character is. And people like Kelly know who this character is. But nobody watching this show who's never read Spider-Man has any idea who this blonde chick is who's got the hots for Harry Osborn all of a sudden. It was the worst writing of that show.
It was a kids show, and if they had pulled a comic at the time, they would have seen Liz.
What she said.
The Hobgoblin's little death skull gas thing is kind of cool. We don't really get to see that almost ever in any of the other versions of Hobgoblin, except for these issues with Inferno. He employs a whole lot of other really horrific tricks coming up soon, which we will get to when he becomes more and more of a demon. But also the appearance of the Empire State Building as it is altering, you could really fit this into where it's happening in the X-Men books, because the Empire State Building is the constant piece that appears in all of Inferno.
Well,
and
it's growing.
As it's changing, yes. As it's growing and altering and looking more demonic, you can figure out where the tie-ins happen with Inferno. And there's two giant Inferno omnibuses. One contains every one of the X titles, including X Terminus and Excalibur. And then there's the crossover hardcover, which has the Amazing Spider-Man Todd McFarlane cover as its cover.
Yeah.
And this would begin the Harry Osborn good guy Green Goblin storyline for a little while. I really got to ask JMD Mateus next time he comes on, why did they decide to go make Harry the bad guy again? Because after this and Amazing and 2 issues of Web of, Harry's a good guy. In fact, Harry also remembers Peter as Spider-Man, but is like, "Go get him, buddy. You're my friend. Spider-Man's Peter, but I don't care. He's doing good things. He didn't kill my dad." But when JMD Mateus comes on during the Child Within, Harry goes full on nuts, sees a ghost of his dad. Must kill Spider-Man! Ah!
The thing is, there's seeds of it right here. He feels like his dad would have protected his family, even though we all know his dad didn't give two craps about the family. Like, because Norman is a psychopath. The thing is Harry is literally, he is an abused kid. I mean, he is psychologically abused, and this was before any of the goblin serum or anything else going on. He is a psychologically abused kid. So at any time, he might somewhat seem okay. Any little trigger is going to snap him right back into that fawning period for his dad. Because that's the way I've always taken that, is that just somewhere along the line, he reverted back to type, because that's what he's used to, and that's his safe place, is to fawn.
Do you want to get into real quick, since we're at the end of the episode, and try to explain what the deal is with Kindred? Is Kindred a demon that's inherited Harry's dead body?
Okay. So I don't know. So I don't think it's a dead body necessarily. And obviously, this is something for Nick Spencer to tell us, because I don't know. This is me just guesstimating. But what I've taken it as, way, way, way back with One More Day, when MJ whispers and makes her own separate caveat to the deal, we all assumed, even though they said it was something else later, we all assumed it was for Harry to come back. Here's the thing, though, is that Harry's soul did not consent to this. And we know Harry's soul has been in hell and being tortured all these years. What I assume is basically this was Mephisto's way of, watching them and making sure Peter and MJ didn't get back together. But because it is still Harry, even if it is demonic in his own way, he's got his own agenda, his own mindset of doing things. But his soul has been turned demonic just from his time there, and he is angry because he didn't agree to come back and to have to then pretend that everything's okay when it's not, because that's one thing that Harry just has never been able to fully do. But the thing is like right now, I feel like we're looking at something half baked and we're expecting it to be this amazing thing. And so I'm waiting for like the true reveal and the true discussion of Kindred, which is why I'm getting annoyed that we're doing 10,000 other side stories before we focus in on this.
Time, GOG, Tombstone.
But I still have some hope that at least something along my idea of theories will probably happen, or something crazy wonderful that doesn't, I might not be seeing happens, just as long as it works and it makes sense to the story. And I feel like right now the only way you can make sense of him becoming Kindred is he's been Kindred this whole time. He's never been alive or fully human. This is a demonic entity. But this is what Harry has become because he was basically taken out. Because it's kind of like that Buffy thing where where Buffy, when she came back and she's like, no, I was happy. Not saying that he was happy, but just like he had accepted his fate here, and then he gets pulled out and he doesn't know if this is real or if he's going to be able to stay anymore, if that makes sense. And he has his own agenda that I don't necessarily think is good or bad. It's his own agenda.
And Nick Spencer, is very much about continuity. He has done a great job of like everything with GOG. That's all that happened. All that GOG stuff happened. He's really great about trying to make sure everyone's continuity happened like the way it was written. There was the retcon that Norman Osborn came back into the country, scooped up into Harry's body or whatever. He was in a goblin-like coma, whatever, and purged him of the goblin formula while he was in Europe, and that's why Harry came back. Part of the Mephisto turning into a bird and picking the lock, retcon of going back in time to change events so Peter and Mary Jane will get married. And the ongoing thing of Kindred is happening right now with Kingpin constantly talking to Kindred about the Tablet of Time and Tablet of Life to try and bring back Vanessa Fisk, which is what that's alluding to.
Well, I believe Kindred wants those for himself. I just can't tell you exactly why.
At the end of the Valentine's Day issue of Spider-Man, Mephisto, whenever somebody remembers that it happened, Mephisto is in jail in Las Vegas under the guard of whoever is in charge of hell right now, Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider. And Doctor Strange goes to visit Mephisto to be like,
I don't know. I think we'll get bits and pieces before then. It's just we've still got to finish the life tablet situation, and then we've got the chameleon situation. Yep. I'm just mad because I'm like, can we just not deal with the chameleon? Let's finish the life tablet just because Gog is great, and I would like more Gog. Gog bless us all. Gog is so cute. Then after that, we need I need some more story, and I take it also like I am a big Osborn fan. I love the family. I love that whole, just the richness of the story and the depth that is in there. And there is still something really, really great with this setup for Harry. But let's not bungle that setup. Let's actually sit there and dive deep and actually look at it and talk about it and get into it versus let's go around and do boom, 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 boom because editorial says they need a new suit and they need XYZ and then not make it, not make the good story that is here make sense. And that's what I'm scared of because unfortunately that has been Marvel's MO for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Has been let's do everything flashy and markety wise, but let's not focus on the story. And I don't like that.
And they're really trying to like burn their way through these micro story arcs because we have Amazing coming out 3 times a month again. With these story arcs, with the Gog and the Tablet of Time coming up, and then the Chameleon. Currently, sorry, we're not doing Tablet of Time yet. We're doing Tombstone's love romance with his kid and Robbie's kid, which we went into a lot during the Tombstone arc we just covered. Thank God we have Joe Kelly and Chris Bacalow's nonstop Spider-Man, because good God, that is so much fun, and I'm not bogged down by nonsense of Kindred.
I loved the story. I am not a fan of the artwork because, again, that is where it's not consistent.
You don't like Chris's Bacalow?
Bacalow, yeah, no. His faces melt and it's just inconsistent art. And also, there's a color in that team. There is a coloring issue with the character Kelly because when she was first shown, she was actually very much a lot darker skinned than what we see in Nonstop. Not that I should be complaining because it looks like they ripped off one of my photos with my Mayday wig on, but
but
I thought it was fun. I was like, why am I bugging Peter? Like I could yes, Peter, I could Google myself. Like the answer is myself. Wait, why am I doing drugs? I don't do drugs. This is not me. But yeah, so that was kind of, it's fun to have fun with that, but at the same time, I could see where somebody might get upset by that coloring issue. And then again, to me, I'm a sucker for consistent artwork. Just give me consistent art.
And over in Kingpin Chameleon, we have Teresa coming back.
Yes.
Okay.
Not a fan, I can see by the sneer on your face.
I don't understand. Sorry. Okay, here's my thing. If Teresa was just like a little side character from S.H.I.E.L.D. and we maybe like a cousin or another clone or something, I'd be cool. I'm not okay with this whole, she's your sister and she grew up in S.H.I.E.L.D. and no one ever told you are your Uncle Ben or Aunt May at all. No one told any family members whatsoever. It doesn't make sense.
And considering how many retcons they've had with Peter's parents, not counting the they came back from the dead, but they're really robots and so on. That stupidity thing.
Maybe Teresa's a robot. Maybe that's what it is, and we'll find that out later. Because at some point they're gonna have to do something with her, and and
the thing is that bugs me is like he doesn't have like a close relationship with Nick Fury, but Nick Fury respects Spider-Man. He knows Spider-Man's Peter Parker back when Nick Fury was not the man living on the wall working for the Watcher and that whole nonsense. You're right. At no point he said, by the way, you have a sister working in S.H.I.E.L.D. Don't tell anyone that I told you, but she works for us. I mean, you're right. It doesn't make it. I like it, but then I don't like it. I mean, I'm totally believable that they had, a baby that they gave away because they're agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they never told Peter and they never told Aunt May. That's fine. I will believe that because they're secret agents. You know what I mean? They got pregnant when they weren't supposed to, and they had to give the baby up. But I don't believe this whole like Shield knew but didn't tell Peter. Really, Wolverine didn't tell Peter. Wolverine's worked for Shield for a bunch of times, and he's got a he
knows.
Peter and Mary Parker, Richard and Mary Parker, according to Untold Tales.
But I mean, to me, Teresa, maybe Teresa's that baby that's really really from that horrible miniseries where Peter is actually Aunt May's kid.
Oh,
I can't remember. Trouble.
Oh.
There we go. Trouble. Maybe it wasn't Peter. It's Teresa, and that's how this is all gonna connect.
I tried to explain Marvels or Trouble or whatever it was called to somebody. It rates right there with me trying to explain. So did you know Mary Jane died because she had sex with Peter and her body was riddled with cancer? Because you know what happens when you have sex with somebody? Gross.
You know that people come up to me and tell me that at like Dragon Con and stuff just because I'm in a spider suit or I'm in Mary Jane. They love telling me about that story, and I'm like, yes, it's funny. That's you.
Gross.
Yeah.
Why would you go up to a cosplayer and tell them the honestly? I like the story for it. When we get to that's disgusting.
You haven't seen my direct messages.
Oh, I can imagine. I wanted to. I mean, there's a whole episode we could get into, like the ups and downs of being a female cosplayer and being a female podcaster. But that is not Spectacular Spiderman.
That is not the show, and that is okay.
Yeah, I got a fantastic female co-host that came on this podcast for Goth Girl Horror, and we are dealing with a whole bunch of fun things and stuff like that every once in a while. But we trudge on and we continue the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for coming on for these 2 issues of the beginning of Inferno. We are covering Inferno for the next 4 weeks because there's just so much to cover with Spectacular and the other Spider titles.
Hey, I had a lot of fun. I love kind of diving deep. So hopefully my breakdown was deep enough for someone who might not be able to find it, but you can find it on Marvel Unlimited. So it's it's not like Spec that doesn't get enough love. Web of Spider-Man is on Marvel Unlimited, guys.
And I don't have the omnibus with me, but it is also collected in the Inferno crossover omnibus, as well as all the other tie-ins to Inferno that are not X related. And again, right on the cover of the omnibus is that beautiful Green Goblin versus Hobgoblin Todd McFarlane artwork, recolored, and it looks beautiful. And the entire art in that whole story is just amazing to see Todd draw Hobgoblin. Before he's a demon, by the way, that issue we're covering next week, Hobgoblin is still not yet a demon, and Todd McFarlane draws him like he is. He gives him normal teeth. You know he's a demon when he's got like venom teeth. And his tongue.
I mean, he's a demon on the inside.
Right. It's funny, if you read Scream, King in Black or whatever, the Dema Goblin is doing what he did over in the adjectiveless Spider-Man issues 6 and 7, where Spidey and Ghost Spider fight him with kidnapping children and altering them and doing weird things to them and stuff like that. I was kind of hoping Adam would show back up like towards the end to team up with Scream to be like, do you remember me? I was the child that you screwed up my face, and now I'm back to like guide you back into the light and so on and so forth. And Scream just be like, I don't know who you are, kid. Not Scream, Shriek, the Shriek demon.
Shriek,
Shriek, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Man, trying to explain the Scream King in Black tie-in to anybody because of how many different people are different other people in that book. Demogoblin, Shriek, Andy, Scream, and then trying to explain who Andy is and who Shriek and Demogoblin are. Jesus Christ.
King in Black is its own it's its own thing, and I hope it ends slightly.
Yeah, did you just see the announcement? There's a Carnage symbiote crossover event coming up.
It's the symbiotes. It's the thing that never ends.
Yeah, right.
It goes on and on, my friends.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Kelly, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at kmcdaniel28, Twitter at MakeMineMayday. You can use the hashtag MakeMineMayday or check that out and see what I am up to. You can also find me on the Spider-Man Crawl Space. I am on the main show as well as our Patreon-only satellites. So if you do want to hear my opinions about stuff like King in Black, Savage Avengers, that is on Patreon for Crawl Space. And I'm also on Spidey Do Network with my own show, Make Mine Mayday. All about the best character of all Spider-Man, Mayday Parker, Spider-Girl.
Not counting what happens later on.
Well, we 2014 never happened. We lived in a simulation, and it's not real.
I do love Mayday Spider-Man, and the Children of Spider-Man gets bigger and bigger. We have Ben from the J.J. Abrams. We have Venom's She-Venom from FX. We have Mayday. We have the little redhead girl, whatever her name
Annie.
was.
Annie, we're not calling her what Slott originally gave her, which was Anna May.
Yeah.
Because if you're Southern, it just sounds like anime.
Right. We have the unborn May Parker from the end of the Clone Saga, so that's number 5. And I'm sure there's a 6th Spider Kid out there.
She wasn't unborn. Hold on, she wasn't unborn.
Oh.
She was born. Norman took her, said that she was stillborn, had those fake nurses to say that she was stillborn, took the baby onto international waters, and that's the last time we saw her.
Was the baby the girl that shows up when Mephisto, before he snaps his fingers to wipe out the continuity of their marriage? Was that the baby being like, by the way, the kid's still alive, but never existed?
So that's a possibility. It also could have been the soul of Annie saying, hey, you could have, May might be gone, but you could have me, because in Renew Your Vows, it is established under Jody Houser's run that May died at childbirth and was a stillborn, and then Annie came a little later.
The other thing that somebody posted in another group, the Fantastic Four group, saying because Franklin Richards has a habit of doing this, what if he sensed the trauma of the Spider-Clone saga coming to an end and Mary Jane's childbirth going badly, snaps his godlike powers, and the baby is switched out with the stillborn and is actually safe and well someplace else in Franklin Richards' weird godlike creation of stuff.
But isn't Franklin 8 during that time? What 8-year-old has the mental capacity, emotional capacity to do this? But
he did that to Valerie when she died back during the post secret when
but that's his sister.
Right, but
that's his sister. That's not his uncle's best friend's wife.
I'm just saying, you never know with the way Marvel writes stuff. And don't forget, who's writing Fantastic Four right now? Dan Slott.
He's probably going to listen to this and get very, very upset, but I don't want him to ever touch Mayday ever again. He's done enough. It's good. We're good. Yeah.
Drew, where can people find you?
I'm just still blown away by that ice cold. It's like I opened the window right now. Ooh, it's cold in here. That got frosty. It's man. You should nickname you Sub-Zero. I'm on Facebook. You should look me up. Drew Malo on Facebook. Ghostbuster Man 1984 on Instagram. I write for Screen Rant, so you can look me up. Drew Malo Screen Rant. And this was the hardest I've ever had to do, being absolutely silent. But Chris, God, I have to respect your show. So, whew, I'm good.
And Leo, you're the head of the network that puts up with all the shenanigans.
Just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not going to say which is which, but more importantly, follow these awesome people. Subscribe to this podcast. And I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. Over 30 shows on the network, which is absolutely insane. I do multiple shows. We do the Creator Spotlight on Mondays. And we do splash pages here on Tuesday. Wednesday, I do Still Token with the Token Dead guys. And also we do the Dorkening on Wednesday as well. And I don't have enough shows that I'm doing right now.
You do not.
That's why I said after Inferno, I'm done with splash pages for quite a little while.
Yeah, you don't want to get burnt out. I'm
already unintended. Yeah. Sorry, this can't happen.
Well, you know, Chris, we totally support, however you want to do things. So it's, we're here for you, my friend.
And you can find me over on the other Dorkening podcast, the Hammer Horror podcast, Boobs, Blood, and Badasses, with my co-host Ro, where we cover all of the Hammer horror movies of the 60s, 70s, and 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's why the title makes complete sense, because Hammer films were known for their boobs, blood, and badasses. And the other comic book podcast I do, which covers the Goth Girl Cassie Hack and Vlad over at Goth Girl Horror, a hack/slash podcast I do with Charcy Lux. We are returning to the regular ongoing after doing multiple miniseries of that book. And then you can also pick up a copy of my own graphic novel, Vlada, a Dracula Tale, where we gender swap the entire cast of Dracula. We'll be back next week with more Inferno nuttiness on Spectacular Spiderman Sal Bucema era podcast.
Cool beans.
Keep it sizzling.